Welcome to Conscious Not Crazy. I'm Corey, your host, and I'm grateful to be here today. And I'm especially grateful because we have a special guest with us. And I'm going to introduce her. And then I'm also going to give her an opportunity to share a little bit about what she's doing, how she ended up here, and a little bit about her journey. We have a lot of similar beliefs and interests, and I'm excited to have a conversation today. So I have Annmarie. I'm going to say it wrong again. So Annmarie, help me out.
Chereso.
Chereso. I'm like, if I try to do it, it's not going to come out right.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
So she's a conscious relationship coach. So perfect for Conscious Not Crazy. She's in the right spot. She's an international best-selling author. She's a speaker, and she was just had a new book come out. So I'm sure she'll be happy to share that with us, where she got to contribute to this book as well. So Annmarie, tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got into this, relationship coaching, who you like to work with. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about you and your journey.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, and hello to everyone listening in. I'll give you the short version because I imagine we're going to meander into the longer version throughout our conversation. But the bottom line is, I went through a divorce. My marriage started to collapse when I was 6 weeks pregnant with my third child, and life started to break me open. I started to wake up. I started seeing a lot of things I hadn't seen in the past. And it led me down this path. And once I started really waking up and really seeing more clearly, I just felt so compelled to start sharing and teaching and leading others. And I think that's probably true for most of us. It's like why referrals are so, powerful because wow, I'm drinking this great thing. You want it too. So it's like I've learned something and I want others to benefit from what I feel like I've benefited from learning in my life through like some really difficult times. So I think where I ended up, it's funny because I started around 15, 17, 18 years ago teaching mindfulness to little ones in schools because I was like, we need these tools like right away. Like, why
Right.
is everyone waiting until we've got stress, anxiety, and dis-ease before we're learning how to take care of our mental health, our spiritual well-being, our emotional well-being, all the layers that make us human? So I started teaching little ones, and then I quickly learned like that it doesn't help them if the adults in the room aren't equally supported. So they need these tools too, and just kept expanding from there.
I love that. And you're 100%. So my we talked about this before. My journey is very much the same. It's like if I learn something that's helping me and supporting me, and in my case, my journey also started in a school. And well, it started when I had kids and I realized I had no idea what I was doing because
Yeah.
there's no manual for the most important job we have.
Yep.
And there's no right or wrong way. But what I discovered, just like you said, is it wasn't about my kids. It wasn't fixing my child. It was understanding myself and gaining tools
Yes.
so I could model all of the healthy things for them, including healthy coping mechanisms. Because if I'm losing my mind and yelling at my toddler, I'm not modeling anything for them. So it's so true and I think if we're an empath, which I am for sure, and I'm sure you are as well,
Yeah.
we just don't want people to feel some of the pain that we have experienced. Also, having gone through a divorce, I can relate to that awakening as well. And, even with something like that, there's a lot of fear. There's a fear of the unknown, a fear of what does this look like for me and my kids. And sometimes we stay in situations too long because of that fear.
Yeah.
And letting go of that fear is what led me out of that situation. So I can relate to multiple things you've said, but for sure, it's just having a passion of sharing experiences to hopefully help someone else so they don't feel alone on their journey. So we can share the tools that are working for us So 100%. I love that. I love that so much. So tell me a little bit. I know, so your new book that was out, and I've seen a lot of your posts and things on that. So tell me a little bit about the new book that you got to or participate or contribute to.
Yeah, many years ago, I wrote a children's book, which is super sweet. And that just came through me while I was teaching in a preschool classroom. But recently, I was invited to participate in an anthology called Perfectly Imperfect Families. And I contributed a chapter of the book where I talk about the thing you're talking about, letting go of fear. My chapter is really more focused on embracing fear,
Mhm.
and becoming aware of what happens when we get entangled in our fear, when we get wrapped up in it without being aware of it. So I talk a lot about that. And, my whole practice is rooted in supporting people in moving from fear consciousness to a love consciousness. And how do we do that? Like what, because there's actually a process to doing that. There's a process to moving yourself from your fear-based self, your egoic self, to your spirit self, your more truer self, your higher self. And learning that process was so empowering for me. And I agree with you. I would, I want others to experience less suffering. Now, you and I both know, because we have kids, and anyone listening in knows if you have kids or if you're in relationship to any other human being,
Right.
like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And one of the things that I had to get really clear with was I am not here to, teach people not to suffer. I'm here to teach people how to suffer more, easily.
And
Because
100, I would say like coping mechanisms, right? We want our kids to have healthy coping mechanisms, which requires us to model those.
yeah. Yeah. And our kids, this is much, I talk much about this in the book. Our kids, um, they resonate, their nervous system entrains with our nervous system. So, this modeling that you keep talking about is an energetic modeling because kids don't speak in words, they speak in energy. Humans, actually, all of us speak in energy. So, when we can really take responsibility for our vibration, our frequency, our energy, our emotional state, our mental state, all the layers of being, and we can bring ourselves into homeostasis and wholeness, that's a really attractive quality to others. People, it's like a magnet, and others are drawn into that place of homeostasis. I mean, just think about before you and I got on the call, I'm looking out at my yard and I'm looking now, the trees are in bloom and the grass is green. It's like, I just want to go there. I just want to
Right.
be there. That is the same. Our true nature is what we're all seeking. And so when we're parenting or in any relationship, really, what our kids remember their true nature. It's so close for them. But when they're with us and they literally look up to us figuratively and
Right.
literally, they get confused because they're like, well, wait, this is what feels right in my body, but this is what's happening to the adult. This is my mentor. And when the adult is out of resonance, the child gets out of resonance. So when we can learn to bring ourselves back into homeostasis, that's a really attractive thing. And then we draw in our children. And that's really the essence of what I talk about in the book is how to do that. How do we do that?
Would you mind sharing like one of the tools on how you would direct someone towards that? Because I think it's so true. We say the same thing, we use different language. So aggression begets aggression. So if I'm aggressive, but I'm looking at a child that's in, the fight or flight state or the emotional state, I'm certainly not helping them calm down. Again, that it doesn't matter what I'm saying, it's the behavior, just like you said, it's the energy I'm putting out there. I'm either bringing that energy up or I'm going really calm and bringing it down. And I know in the experience of even working in the classroom, it was so funny. I worked I've worked with kids age 2 all the way through 18.
Yeah.
And when I was working in my first time with the 2-year-olds, 2 and 3-year-olds, which are they're missing tons of skills, but yet they do have a lot of capability, and they're all running around and no one's listening, and you tend to get overwhelmed. Oftentimes teachers, they feel like things are out of control, so their energy goes up. And what I learned is I would sit down and I would get really quiet, and I had to consciously be so conscious. It's so hard to do that. Go the opposite. And I would just notice the one kid that was moving the least, and I would give that child the attention, and then all the kids would slow down and everyone would match everyone's energy. And that is so powerful to see that work and to see that in real time.
Yeah.
And this was early in my journey of learning all of these things. And it's amazing. It's amazing how contagious energy is.
Yeah, it really, really is. And it's so beautiful to watch. And I think you asked for one thing, and
Yeah.
what I offer, I teach a tool, and the tool I teach is like this one simple question you can ask yourself so you can shift from what I call conflict to connection. So it could be conflict within, it could be conflict out there, any kind of dysregulated experience you're having. And the question is, where am I? And when you ask yourself that question, you're waking yourself up to, am I in a state, like literally a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state of trust, or am I in a state of fear? And the way we know that is just by listening to our body.
Yeah.
Our nervous system is telling us. So if I'm feeling like at peace and calm and I have zero resistance, I'm in a state of trust. But when I'm in a classroom with, 18 year olds running amok, you betcha my nervous system's going to get hacked. And that's okay. Like, it's crazy to expect anything else. But it's that portal to first acknowledging, wow, I'm in overwhelm right now. I'm experiencing stress. I'm afraid. I'm whatever it is that I'm feeling. That's what's here now. So you first enter a state of awareness and then a state of deep acceptance. Like,
I
this
love
is what's it. Because as adults, we automatically like, we shouldn't be feeling this way and we're in charge and we should, and we start shoulding all over ourselves.
Mhm.
It's an unrealistic and unfair expectation. So bringing in a power of acceptance really opens you up and allows compassion to come in and all these qualities that will help expand the field so that you can then become the thing that you need to be, which really is just compassion. If you
Right.
just enter a state of compassion, it's one of the highest frequencies on the map of consciousness. You start elevating your frequency. And of course, that's going to attract others because they're
Right.
sexy.
And it feels so good. It feels so good when you're able to do that, because self-control that is not an easy task. But 100, and so I think, and oftentimes, obviously, parents get upset. It's almost always, I would say, rooted in fear of being perceived as not a good parent. Maybe you're with your parents or your in-laws, or just in public at Target at the checkout, and my daughter called me, I think she called me a butthead or something once when she was little. And it's the fear of judgment from others. Am
Yeah.
I a good parent? Because we have so many negative things tell ourselves every day. And letting go of caring less about the outside world and more about looking at the situation for what it is, and how do I best support my child? How do I coach my child? How do I model the behavior that needs to be modeled in this moment?
Yes.
So it's a tough thing, and it took a while, and I see it with teenagers, especially moms and daughters. I see a lot where the moms take things so personal. But with teenagers, you've got raging hormones, you've got all kinds of things. And it's like, well, my daughter, we of course want a respectful household. So I'm like, you need to be respectful, but I certainly don't take, the comments super, I don't take that personal. I'm like, that I got to meet her where she's at.
Yeah. And unfortunately, um, hormones aren't respectful, right? They're not respectful
No.
of the body. They're not. And, we, when 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 our children are feeling dysregulated, and they're going to feel dysregulated when they're in these hormonal phases, they're like, your body is literally going out of control, and it feels so hard to be in that body, as you well know. When that's happening, um, it's like compassion and grace, compassion and grace, compassion and grace with boundaries, right?
Yes.
Boundaries are really important, but it's really, we often talk about like how we want to model for our children, but I really see it as modeling for our inner child. Like that inner child that never got its needs met, that inner child that felt neglected, that inner child that never learned how to be regulated, right? Because we were parented by people who didn't have the tools.
Right.
So we first have to go in and look at the dysregulated parts of ourselves when our teenager is hormonal and showing up in the room and, going crazy, or our toddler is, throwing their blocks, or whatever's happening. It's really like not what I'm saying, it's how I'm being in
Oh,
that space. And I think that's really important because we often make it about our kids, like modeling for them.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
and 100% that's what we're doing. But ultimately, it's about feeling good in our own bodies, feeling good in ourselves.
100%, because I think I find myself at this point in my life, it's like I make myself sit in discomfort. We have a real, we're constantly inundated with email, with text, we're just overstimulated, right? And especially, and I'm a busy person. That's just how I functioned my whole life. Sitting quietly when you're having an uncomfortable feeling or thought and actually asking yourself, which I love that you use that question. It's like, why am I feeling this way? What am I feeling? Is this because of my thinking, or is this because of something that's actually happened, or is it something from my past? Kind of just working through all those, like
Yeah.
you said, unmet needs maybe from childhood. And I do believe I share this theory. This is kind of my theory on where we are with parenting in the world. And I believe it's a pendulum. And we were raised in this generation of suppressed emotion. Children should be seen and not heard. Do as I say, not as I do. Shame, punishment, all those things. There's some good things that came of that. We are resourceful, we have grit. But I see a lot of adults with, again, they've never had their feelings acknowledged. They don't know what to do with those feelings. They don't have healthy coping mechanisms. So now they're raising children. So I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. Now we're over here on the pendulum, and we're raising children and we're saving them from all the pain that we maybe felt or experienced, and we're overcompensating. And so now kids have no coping skills. They're not given opportunities to fail because there's such a negative association with failure. And failure is necessary. Ask any person that's ever achieved anything, they failed more than they succeeded. They just didn't quit. We're letting them quit a sport before they fulfill their commitment. We're taking them something to school when they forget it. We're saving constantly. And I believe there's a middle is where we want to be, where feelings are valid. And I use this analogy. It's feelings should be indicators, not dictators. Recognize the feeling, why, and try to understand the feeling, and then what do I do with that? And we can't control anyone else in the world. And my kids hear me say this all the time. They're like, I know, mom, I'm responsible for my, what I do, my behavior, my feelings. Cause they'll say, you're making me mad. I'm like, well, I can't make you mad. You might not like what I'm telling you, but it's your choice to be mad. And they just roll their eyes, but they'll appreciate it someday. But we need to find that middle ground where, yes, feelings are real, but what we do with that is on us. We can't control the world. We can't control circumstances. We can't control the boss we have. We can't control the traffic in front of us. So how are we going to choose to show up and respond?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the analogy I share, which
Yeah, I
I've
love it.
for years.
Yeah, I mean, this question that I mentioned earlier, like, where am I? It really is, I think, the single most important question we can be asking ourselves in any given moment. And it's an indicator, like you said, am I And the key is I need to be honest with myself. So am I in
Mhm.
a place of trust or am I in a place of fear? So when I'm in a place of fear, know one thing that is reliably true is I will create conflict and drama and resistance from that place of fear. That is just the way of it. There's no arguing it. It's just what is. So if anyone's listening in, if you're in conflict, if you're in a drama, if you have some resistance, if something's coming back at you that you don't like, you are in your ego and you're in a state of fear. And that's okay. Like, we don't judge that. We don't make that wrong. We don't make that bad. We use it as a guidepost to help us get clarity. And so, like you mentioned, from those places, our ego is going to kick up. We're going to get defensive. We're going to get into our patterns, these patterns that we developed for safety. And so we're just learning. We're just learning. So we get to learn every single day how our patterns are showing up and how to get into right relationship to those patterns so that we can feel more empowered in our relationships, not only to our kids, but to our significant others,
Mhm.
to our, aging parents, to our friends, to our siblings, like to everyone in the world. Can we exist in relationship from a truly open and vulnerable heart? Or are we back down there protecting our heart and closing our heart? And I say, as human beings, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we are seeking connection, we're seeking intimacy, we are seeking community. Connection is the fundamental need after food and water and shelter
Right.
that we're all seeking as human beings, but nobody really understands how to create those heart centered connections. So we're all down there in fear, scrambling in conflict, kicking up against each other. And it's not a lot of fun down there.
No, and I even see that, like, in my adult friends. Like, if I have friends out in their late 40s, early 50s dating, they're so afraid to say what they think. They're like, maybe they've met someone and they're like, "Well, I don't wanna send a text." They're overthinking the whole, and I'm like, "Say what you feel, say what you think, be authentic, and don't be fearful of the outcome." Because if you're inauthentic, the relationship's not right. And if you don't like the response, it wasn't meant to be, which is hard because nobody wants to be rejected. Nobody wants to hear that. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we need to hear that to know if this is an authentic and good and healthy fit. And that is something I want my kids to grow up understanding. It's like, don't try to say what you think the person. Now, can we be kind and respectful? Yes, but be honest and be authentic. Be who you are. And no, not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to receive the message well. But if the intent is good and it's kind and it comes from the heart, then it's the right thing to say. We don't want to show up as who we think someone wants us to be.
Yeah.
Just like in the checkout line at Target, I don't want to show up as the person I think that I want them to perceive me as a parent. I want to be the authentic parent that's that's doing the best I can for my child. So it's just so interesting because on my journey to trying to become the best parent I could be has really, it's all human behavior, it's all emotional intelligence, and it's really had an impact on every relationship in my life. And you touched on boundaries. That's a big one for me. That's a huge one, is understanding and learning about boundaries. And I read several books on it, and of course now have gotten really good at it. But a lot of people don't receive boundaries well, and they see it as you not wanting them in their life because it feels uncomfortable. And that's not at all what boundaries are. Boundaries are, I want to keep you in my life, but in order to protect myself and to, so I feel safe, this is what that looks like. And it's your choice. A boundary isn't about me telling you what to do or what not to do. It's what I'm willing to do or not do, or what I'm willing to tolerate or not tolerate.
Yeah.
And they're great for our kids too, because again, we want them to have the tool of boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. Boundaries are good. I mean, again, we don't keep boundaries because we're operating from ego and we're afraid. And again, it's just this series of these, like, most of us are walking around the planet operating from fear-based patterns that we are not even aware of. We are so used to being the way we're being, we don't even know that we're in these egoic patterns and kicking up all this drama and conflict. And to your point, boundaries are really, really hard when you're caught up in these patterns because you're afraid and you're making up these stories and you don't want to offend someone and you don't want to push someone away. Like you're trying to, at the root of it is control. So fear and control always go hand in hand.
Right.
The more conscious we are of our fear-based, control-based patterns, the easier it is to shift those behaviors, not from a should or this is the right way, from a place of wholeness. Like this is like sovereign. I am
Mhm.
a sovereign being. I get to choose how I want to, live this life on this planet and on this day. And there is no right or wrong about it. There's just an allowing of what is.
Well, and something that I always like to say, like when I'm talking to parents, because we put so much pressure on ourselves, we're so critical of ourselves, is stop doing that. But just try to be better. Like just be better than yesterday. Like if every day I wake up and I just strive for a little bit better, and focus on what's better, not what I did wrong. It's just a more positive outlook, it seems more attainable, it's less negative, and it seems like something I can do. And kids do this. Kids will make a mistake in school and, there's a consequence. Sometimes they will continue to we used to see it all the time. They'll just sabotage the rest of their day because
Mhm.
they feel yucky and they don't feel like they can come out of that. And we would stop them and say, hey, that was a mistake. That isn't who you are. It doesn't define you. Your day, you have a choice right here. You can change your day and make it better,
Yeah.
or you can continue doing these things, but your day is not going to go well. Which way do you want to go? And I love the idea of questions because that's one thing I think as parents and people, we're always telling people what they should have done or why did you do, we're coming at them telling them what they did wrong or what they should have done differently. And instead, if we ask questions, people have to think, they have to process, they have to go to the cognitive processing centers, those prefrontal lobes. And if we're thinking, we're less likely in that emotional or fight or flight, so we can think and problem solve too. So I love that. And it is hard to change those patterns because a lot of people, as you said, are living blindly just in a reactionary mode, not realizing it. And once you realize it and you become present, it's not easy, but you're constantly asking yourself questions.
Yeah, and I really like you naming this, like, let's get out of the cognitive and let's get into the body. I used to ask my kids when they were little, "How did that feel when
Yeah,
you said this or did this?" Or, like, "How did it feel?" And obviously, you're gonna be in the head a little bit and name it and describe it, but really, if we can, help our kids. I mean, I hesitated to say that because we don't actually need to help our kids. They're in their bodies. We have to help them stay in their bodies and get, out of their head, back in the body. They are really teaching us how to do that is what's going on here. They're
100%.
teaching us how to get back in the body, be related in the moment, and become more conscious because they already are. They're just in the moment, doing life, having their own reactions, and the less we get in the way, the better.
100%. Because so often the outside world is what creates all of this. It stifles them, it creates the limiting beliefs. Bree, my friend who owns the school, my kids went to a really small private school here in Kansas City, and it's a Reggio Emilia school.
Yep.
And a lot of attention on the social emotional well-being of the child. And she used to always talk about the beam theory. The child's born with everything good and everything in them already. How do we pull it out? And as teachers in that environment, it was such an amazing learning experience because the kids come to the table with all the knowledge. It was my job as the facilitator to pull it from them. And not every child has the same knowledge, just like in a workplace, not every person working there has the same skills and abilities. We're not all great at everything. But the unfortunately traditional education, I think, really stifles that. Well, you're not good at math. You're not good at reading. And we focus on all the things they're not good at instead of coaching them and teaching them, you're really good at this. And where can you go get help with this? How can you
Yeah.
be resourceful? How can you advocate for yourself? Where can you find that tool? Who do you know that has that skill? And
Yeah.
teaching kids how to collaborate, and it's all about community. And cultures change now. We don't grow up in these communities like back when tribes existed. It looks a lot different, or even neighborhoods look different now. And of course, with social media and all of those things, kids are very disconnected. But yes, teaching in that environment and seeing children as already coming to the table with everything. I think adults, we've been our beliefs. We have all these limiting beliefs, and now we're raising kids, and we're putting those things on them. So as you said, if we could just stay out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about like kids come into the world with everything they need to bloom. My book is called Little Seeds Journey, and it really is all about this. It's about cultivating the conditions for thriving. So we don't actually need to do anything. Our kids are going to bloom if the conditions are right. So just like a seed, I plant the seed in the earth. I make sure the soil has the right pH balance. There's enough water, there's enough sun, enough nutrients in the soil, and the seed does what the seed does. I don't have to do anything, maybe pull a few weeds here and there. But
Right.
other than that, that seed is going to naturally become what it's meant to become. If we get out of the way, our kids, and by the way, we will become who we're meant to become. But as we age, our gardens get full of weeds, and we need to tend to those weeds because they're choking us out. And the older we get, the more weeds there are, I think, in the garden. So
100%. And it's harder for people. I mean, again, like you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
yeah,
It's hard for people at some point too to see that change is possible, and it's never too late. And the terminology I use for the brain, it's like our pathways are wired. We have like these CD-ROMs, and that's when we're just living on autopilot. And to change those past pathways is possible. I've done it in my own brain. It just takes a lot of time. It requires having a lot of grace for yourself, not
yes,
expecting perfect. Perfect is not attainable. I have conscious, not crazy for parents, but I have better, not perfect for businesses. And it's because really that idea of perfection simply just it's a barrier. It holds people back. It keeps people from chasing their dreams, doing the thing, because they're always waiting to do it when everything's perfect, which is not possible,
yeah.
not attainable. But
But we
so,
do live in an airbrush, chat
yeah,
GPT, Photoshop world. So these ideals of perfection come, honestly,
yeah,
we're looking, I mean, okay, you and I, even when we hopped on the call, we're like, you look good. No, you look good. Like, we're seeking this ideal experience of ourselves, and we're always looking for what does that look like over there. And my daughter and I just had this conversation. She's 24 years old, and she's a photographer, and we were talking about young people her age, and plastic surgery and lip fillers and all the things young women are doing these days because they feel so compelled. And I say it's almost impossible to be a woman today and not and feel good about yourself. It's
right,
almost impossible because the messages being sent to you are impossible and not attainable. And you're not eating right, you're not wearing the right makeup, and your hair's not right, and the color's not right, and the Botox and no Botox, and your lips are too big, your lips are too small. Like there's so much information coming in, all those weeds.
So yeah, that's a whole nother, I mean, we could probably talk for hours just on this topic alone, but the impact of social media on our kids, because there's that social contagion piece, right? Like whatever we look at, we're fed more of. So I always tell parents, if you want to know what's going on in your kids' minds or lives, check their social media feed,
Yep.
see what's showing up in it. Because mine, I know, is very, and it's funny because I was at a work conference at one point, and he said, look at your feed, and that'll say a lot about where you are in life. And you can intentionally make it positive. And mine at the time was all like motivational quotes. It was all entrepreneurs, and it was all very positive because I intentionally skip over the other stuff. I don't want to be fed a bunch of political stuff. I don't want to be fed a bunch of negative stuff. I don't have space for that. I don't have space for that in my life. I gave up TV for a year, and ever since I did that, I have a hard time watching it to this day.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be very intentional on what I was allowing in. And I personally recognized I came off autopilot and realized at a time in my life, it was around the time I was getting divorced, I was tuning out, and that was my coping. Because if I watched the show, or I wasn't thinking about anything. And I'm like, this is not serving me though in this moment. I really need to get in alignment. I really need to see what I value. What else could I be doing with my time? This is not positive.
Yeah.
And once I removed it after a year, it never really came back. Will I sit down and watch something with my kids? Yes. Will I watch a movie on occasion? Yes. But if I've sat down and tried to watch a show, I genuinely, because it's so distinct now, the difference on how I feel, I don't like how I feel after I watch it. So I'm like, nope, I don't want to watch that stuff. It's so interesting.
Yeah. That technology detox is real, and you do notice a sensory experience around that when you're detoxing from technology. And we live in a world where technology is just in our face all the time. Here it is right now. You and I are on this stream having this lovely conversation, this lovely talk, but still it's technology, and we're not going to get away from it. So being able to have control, have agency over how you use it and how you ingest it is a really, really important skill. It's one that our kids are not getting the luxury of learning. You and I both have had the not technology portion of our life and the technology portion of our life. Our kids haven't had that experience.
No, they don't know any different. So it's a little scary, and more data is coming out. The Anxious Generation, that book is amazing because he talks a lot about that. But very, very scary. Okay, so tell us, if somebody wants to find you, if somebody wants to work with you, how do we do that?
No. Well, you can go to my website, AnnmarieChereso.me. I have a free gift there. I have a little mini masterclass where someone can go and get a taste of how to explore that question, where am I, and apply it to their life and relationships. You get a free worksheet, and you get that 10-minute masterclass, which is great. And there's all sorts of other goodies on my website. That's the best place to start.
Awesome. And of course, your books, I'm assuming, how do we find those?
The book is on Amazon. You could also get that through the website, Perfectly Imperfect Families. It's available now in paperback and audiobook.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was so great connecting with you again.
You too.
And I wish you the best with your new book launch.
Thank you. It's so good to be with you.
Well, thank you. Well, I will make sure I have all of Annmarie's information in the show notes. So you don't have to write this down. You can just go back and look in the show notes to find her, and definitely go check out her website, check out her books. And thank you again, Annmarie. I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast.
Really great to be with you, Corey. Take good care.